Hi, in this video, I'm going to show you how to perform the experiment of preparing benzoic acid from ethyl benzoate. Now, the key reaction in this experiment is called the alkaline hydrolysis of ethyl benzoate. So you can look at this equation here. We start off with ethyl benzoate, which is an ester. And we treat it with sodium hydroxide, and heating under reflux, it is going to be hydrolyzed into sodium benzoate and ethanol. Now you notice that we are not making benzoic acid directly. Instead, we are making the sodium benzoate. This is because in alkaline medium, benzoic acid exists as the carboxylate salt, the sodium benzoate. Therefore, after we perform this reaction, we are actually going to perform another reaction where we will treat the product with hydrochloric acid, and during this process, the benzoic ion will be converted back to benzoic acid, and this is our target product. Now, of course, in the real laboratory preparation, we are not simply performing the reaction. In fact, in most of the typical preparation of substance, we have altogether 3 stages. The first stage is obviously the reaction. The second stage is the separation. Now, separation means we want to separate our target product from the unreacted reagent, from the solvent, from any byproduct. And lastly, with the separated product, we try to purify it, basically to further remove any, for example, residual water, for example, any other reagent that may have stuck together with target product. So in today's experiment, we are going to go through these 3 stages as well. For the reaction part, of course, it is going to be the alkaline hydrolysis. The second part, which is the separation, we will actually perform a suction filtration. And lastly, for the purification, we will perform a recrystallization. So let's get started. So first of all, we are trying to prepare our reaction mixture. In this experiment, we are using a micro-scale experiment setup. Micro-scale experiment basically means we will use smaller quantity of reagent, and therefore we will be using a smaller apparatus. This time we will be using a 5 ml round bottom flask. And to that, we are going to add the ester, 1 ml, ethanol, 1.5 ml, and sodium hydroxide, 1.5 ml. So let's do it one by one using a 1 ml pipette. Now, after adding the 3 liquids, you may come across with this white solid. The formation of the white solid is probably due to the formation of sodium benzoate. And sodium benzoate is not very soluble in the ethanol as well as the ester, and therefore it appears to be a white precipitate. Now, if you encounter this situation, it is optional for you to add a small amount of water to dissolve this white solid. You might also notice that there are actually 2 layers of liquids, and the reason why there are 2 layers of liquid is because the ester and the water of the sodium hydroxide doesn't mix well, so that's why it appears to have 2 layers of oily liquids. Now, before performing the reflux, we will actually add the anti-pumping granules. Now here we are going to set up the reflux apparatus. So first of all, we will have this reflux condenser. Even though it is in micro scale, but the major component should be the same as the regular reflux condenser. So bear in mind that there is the water inlet at the bottom and the water outlet at the top. First of all, we need to secure the condenser onto a clamp. After that, look for the rubber tubing that is connected to the lower end of the reflux condenser, and we will connect the rubber tubing to the water tap. Now there should be a rubber adapter for the connection, and this is the part where the heated water flow away from the condenser. Now try to open the water tap to see if the water flow properly. Now, connect the round bottom flask that contains the reaction mixture to the reflux condenser. There is a rubber screw. Make sure you secure the round bottom flask tightly. Place the tripod and wire gauze below the round bottom flask and adjust the height of the clamp so that the bottom of the round bottom flask is touching the wire gauze. Place the micro burner underneath the wire gauze. Light up a Bunsen burner. Open the air hole. Now, you need to pay attention that because it is a micro-scale experiment, we don't have a lot of liquid inside the round bottom flask. In other words, the liquid gets boils much faster than a regular setup. So you need to pay extra attention as you adjust the heating such that you can achieve a steady boiling. You try not to have the liquid that is boiled too vigorously, otherwise you may have the liquid that shoots out from the condenser, and that would result in the loss of reactant and product, as well as it could be very dangerous. So right now, try to adjust the heating in order to achieve a steady boiling. You may need to sometimes take away the heating, or you may need to heat it from the sideway. Now you may try to adjust the heating such that you can maintain the condensation ring within the middle part of the condenser. Now, as you are doing your reflux, you may see that there are some white solid that is formed inside the round bottom flask. If you see this happen, you can actually add distilled water so that you can dissolve the white solid. Now, when you see that the liquid has become one layer instead of two layers, you can now stop the heating. You can consider using wet towel to gently touch the surface of the round bottom flask to speed up the cooling. You can also have an ice water bath to speed up the cooling, simply by immersing the flask under the ice water bath. Then the mixture will be cooled down within a short period of time. After the round bottom flask has been cooled down, carefully remove it from the condenser and pour the content into a clean beaker Pay attention not to also pour down the anti-pumping granules. Use distilled water to flush it several times in order to transfer more of the crude product into the beaker. So after transferring the mixture from the round bottom flask to the beaker, now we need to take the beaker to the fume cupboard, and to that we are going to add concentrated hydrochloric acid. Now before we add the acid, if you add a pH paper, you will get a blue color because this is highly alkaline. With the stirring of a glass rod, carefully and slowly add in the hydrochloric acid. As you add the acid in dropwise manner, stir the reaction mixture. As you add in the acid, you should be able to see a lot of white precipitates form. The white precipitate are the benzoic acid, which are not very soluble in water. Add around 15 to 20 drops. Compare the color with the pH scale. Our target is to register a pH of 3. Now it is not yet reaching pH 3, so we need to add a few more drops of hydrochloric acid. Now, we are going to perform a suction filtration to our crude product in order to separate it from the rest of the chemical species. To construct a suction filtration setup, first of all, we need to have our suction flask and the suction pump. To connect the suction pump, make sure it is connected to one of the water tap, and the other end of the rubber tubing should be connected to the suction flask. Open the tap and let the water flow. On top of the suction flask, we have the butcher funnel. Place the butcher funnel on top of the suction flask. Twist so that the rubber band can connect the flask and the funnel tightly. Now, place your palm on top of the funnel to feel if you sense a suction force. Now, place the filter paper on top of the butcher funnel. Apply small amount of distilled water to the filter paper so that it is stuck firmly to the bottom of the butcher funnel. Now, with a clean spatula, carefully transfer all the crude product into the butcher funnel for suction filtration. You may apply minimum amount of ice cold water to rinse the product down into the butcher funnel. Wash the surface of the solid using minimum amount of cold water. This is to wash away any impurities that have stuck on the surface of the product. Ice water is necessary because the benzoic acid is slightly soluble in room temperature water. This is to minimize the loss of benzoic acid as you wash the surface of the solid. Now here on the butcher funnel we have the crude benzoic acid, and we are now going to perform a recrystallization to purify this crude benzoic acid. First of all, use a clean spatula, carefully transfer all this solid into a clean beaker. After transferring all the crude benzoic acid into a beaker, we are going to perform the recrystallization. Now for benzoic acid, we have chosen hot water as the solvent for recrystallization. This is because benzoic acid is highly soluble in hot water, but it does not really soluble in cold water. So right now, we are trying to add the minimum amount of hot water so that we can dissolve all of this benzoic acid. As you are doing the recrystallization, we want to make sure the water is hot. Therefore, we will put the beaker under a Bunsen burner so that as we add the hot water inside, the water stays hot. In this experiment, you will add around 15 cm cube of water. Keep stirring the mixture until all of the white solid has dissolved. At this stage, if you observe any insoluble solid that can never dissolve no matter how much you stir it, there is an option that you perform a filtration while the solution is hot. This is to remove any insoluble solid impurities. However, a filtration like this will likely to result in the loss of product. So it is up to your choice whether you want to do a filtration while the solution is hot. In this particular experiment, my advice is not to do it. When the solution becomes completely clear, stop the heating. Remove the stirrer and let it cool down in room temperature. You may use a wet towel to hold the hot beaker and place it back to the bench. After dissolving all the solid in hot water, we will let it to sit in room temperature for 5 minutes. And during this period, as the temperature of the water goes down, the benzoic acid crystal starts to form, and you should be able to observe needle-shaped crystal of the benzoic acid. Now, after 5 minutes, we will further cool it down using an ice water bath. This is to make sure all the benzoic acid will be crystallized. Now remember, before you perform the final suction filtration to obtain the pure benzoic acid, you need to first take a filter paper and a watch glass, and we want to find out the total mass of the watch glass and the filter paper. This is because after we dry it under an oven or a desiccator, the dry, pure benzoic acid will be stuck onto the filter paper. So if you really want to find out the actual mass of benzoic acid obtained, you need to actually find out the total mass of the watch glass, filter paper, and the benzoic acid. So after we get that number, we will minus the total mass of the watch glass and the filter paper, and this is how we can get the mass of the benzoic acid produced. So don't forget to do this step. Place the filter paper onto the butcher funnel and then add some water to the paper so that it is stuck firmly to the bottom of the butcher funnel. Now carefully filter the pure benzoic acid through the suction filtration. Wash the surface of the pure benzoic acid with minimum amount of ice distilled water. Let the benzoic acid to stand on the butcher funnel for more than 10 minutes to further dry the solid. And after that, we will put it into an oven or a desiccator for drying. So after the product has been dried on the butcher funnel for like 10 minutes, it is time to transfer the benzoic acid together with the filter paper onto a watch glass. Now remember, the watch glass and the filter paper are the two that you have weighed earlier. So we will place the watch glass into the oven for drying. So after placing the watch glass into the oven, close the oven and let it dry for at least 1 hour. And after 1 hour, come back to the lab and re-weigh the watch glass, filter paper, and the benzoic acid. So after an hour, come back to the lab, open it, and take the dried sample, and we will do the weighing. So that would be the last step of the entire experiment. The total mass of the benzoic acid would be the total weight of the product, filter paper, and watch glass minus the total mass of the watch glass and the filter paper, of which you should have weighed earlier before we do the drying. So that concludes the experiment, and that's the end of the video.